What's going on, everybody? And welcome to another Creative Mind episode. Man, super stoked about this one. Every time we sit down with a creative and you get to hear the story, it's always like an inspiration for me, and I know for people tuning in, listening in as well. Um, but yeah, for those that don't know, my name is Andrew Lyko. I am the host and the founder of ODK. ODK, I would say, is my initiative to try and get more spotlight onto creatives. And that goes across the board, from artists, musicians, stylists, DJs, basically anybody in the creative arts, and really trying to make it happen, doing things their way, living life a bit differently. And I feel like our stories are not really out there as much as they should be, right? Because with our stories and what we do, we inspire the next generation. So I made it an initiative for myself to make sure that no matter what I'm doing, no matter how busy I get, I find the time to do these episodes because I know how important they are. And not just for the moment, but to leave in the past, right? We were essentially leaving kind of like a playbook for other people to come in and digest this information. So that's why these episodes are extremely important for me. And although we don't get paid for them, I try to find time and make sure that have to sit down with these creatives. So first off, I want to thank Boy with No Legs for taking the time, man. I know you're super busy, you have a lot going on, so I want you to know I really appreciate you taking the time to come in and have this conversation with me, man. Um, but yeah, that being said, man, I really just want to get straight into it, dude, because I really want to use up as much time as possible and really just dive into the story of Boy with No Legs, and get his perspective on things because I know in this hectic world, man, being a creator right now is, it's just changing crazy and one thing can lead to another, but for the most part, we're all trying to do the best that we can. And so, boy, when you want to come up here, bro, and just say what's up to the people.
Yeah, hello. Thanks for having me on and excited to kind of chat further. I think it's always exciting to do spaces like these just because it helps me like slow down a bit and like reflect on a lot of things of stuff I'm doing or kind of everything that I've been doing while on Solana as an artist. So it's nice to kind of be able to chat with people and dive into stuff deeper, just even for myself, and then hope that kind of some of the stuff I talk about, others are able to get something out of. But appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, no doubt, bro. And this space kind of has been really open conversation, and I'm a creator myself, right? And I've been in the trenches, and I know exactly the ups and downs of what that's like, right? Living this life. So what I like to do is kind of like let the conversation build up on its own. Like I have no notes, bro. I have no previous stuff that I have planned. This is just raw in the moment. And so I guess my first question for you, bro, would really be just like, how are you currently feeling right now? Like at this point in time, you just said it's nice to slow down and hop on these spaces. Like, what's your current mood like right now at the moment?
Yeah, that's a solid question. I feel like that's very rarely asked in kind of Twitter space. There's just in general. But feeling pretty good. I think it's kind of um, I'm in a much more kind of consistent headspace and have a good flow of stuff now than like this time last month when it was like way higher stress. Leading up to like Toonies Mint and everything going on. Now it's kind of being on the other side of it, having that kind of community formed, and just now kind of following through with everything on that front, and then even find a big thing is just finding more of that balance, like finding time for like my own personal life stuff and like my own artwork to be able to create again, but also just being able to follow through with everything related to Toonies. And yeah, I mean, in a pretty good spot. How about you?
Um, Bro, honestly, it's pretty hectic right now. I just currently came from Mexico City to LA, and what I'm doing right now is a lot of like I'm building in the public eye, right? So we're doing episodes every week of like building the brand. So right now it's kind of like when I'm showing face, reconnecting with relationships, like it's a lot of in people person type of things, right? So that takes up a lot of energy, man. So from hopping from that to this, it's a little hectic, but luckily, this has been my life for the past couple of years, so I'm used to it. But isn't that wild, bro? Like the fact that you said like, wow, that question is not really asked. Like, think about that, dude. Like something as simple as just, yo, how you feeling today, dog? Like I know you've been doing a lot of stuff, so just that simple fact that somebody actually even cares, like, yo, are you good? Like, how's everything going before we actually hop into it?
Yeah,
Uh,
it's kind of crazy that that's like such a rare type of question. I mean, in general, there would be people like that check in or show support or just like stuff like that, but I think it's far less common where it's like kind of publicly like in a space or anything like that. But so yeah, I appreciate it.
no doubt, bro. So let's run this way back. Because I think this is the first time that me and you have like a one-on-one conversation. Because I've seen you around. Obviously, you've been around for quite some time. Like when I entered the one-on-one art space, like you already up and going. I'm seeing here your exchange art profile, bro. You have like over 100K volumes sold, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But like, let's run this back and one of the questions that I like to ask in this space is always like, do you remember one of the first times or like that moment that you realized like, yo, I want to be a creator? And what was that like? If you can remember like one time in your life early on, we just like, damn, I just realized like I love creating. Like this is what I like to do.
Definitely. I think it started like at a very early age for me. I was very like fascinated by cartoons that I would watch, like Adventure Time or like even SpongeBob or just stuff that was always on and around. And then loved comic books as a kid, was always super into like different superheroes. And then also just books like Captain Underpants, which sounds funny, but I swear
Yo, I remember that, bro. I remember
that,
Captain Underpants.
yeah, for real, that book was very pivotal, and like the characters in this like children's book had like their own comic series that they would make or whatever. So that paired with my interest in cartoons or like DC comic books or whatever, um kind of made me want to like start to just create my own stuff. Or I was just always like, oh, this is so cool that there's these worlds and these zany characters and everything. I want to make my own. So I would just draw a lot as a kid, and a big thing was trying to create like deeper storylines or like full worlds that the characters were inside of. So it was not just like, oh, they're cool looking, but there's like a lot more going on, which I think kind of eventually like turned into more of that like artistic mindset of like wanting to create something that initially is just like it's cool or it has like this good visual side to it, but I always strive to have something that has like a bit more depth to it in one way or another. But like early on, I think I was like in elementary school when that kind of first started, and over time it just developed into wanting to try out different things. So it'd be like I would find interest in different sort of like creative facets, and I'd be like, oh, this is cool, I'm interested in this, I want to try it myself. So like there was a time where I was making music a lot because it was just I was very interested in music, still am, but it was like, oh, I love music, so let me just try it out myself. And I eventually got really into fashion, so I was like, I love fashion, let me try it myself. And I think that's kind of still my mindset of like, oh, I'm really into figures and I've always collected figures since I was a kid. Let me like create my own or something in that realm, or wanting to do more stuff down the line that is just taking um, things that I find interesting or I'm inspired by in some sense and trying my own hand in them, which I think is kind of like something that I'm grateful to like be able to do. And sometimes it turns out not great, but it's like it's worth trying that type of stuff out. But I've kind of just been that way since I was a kid, and over time it's just been tapping into different mediums of stuff or um, different types of like creative outlets, I guess.
Yeah, man. It sounds like, I mean, I can really understand it because it sounds like as early on as a kid with these cartoons, right? These influences that were going into your minds, you realize like, damn. I can create my own version of my own world, right? Like, so that's kind of where your journey started. And from what I'm hearing, because I'm the same way, as you were getting older, right, as you were trying different things, like the mediums was kind of like a new creative adventure for you, and it was kind of like feeding you, right? It was keeping you going because I know for me, I like to jump around from medium to medium as well because it's like it's fresh, it's new, it re-inspires you, and it's not that we're leaving one specific medium behind. It's just kind of like in that moment, in that life, in a precise moment, you're feeling this way with this type of medium, so you're gonna create this out of that. But that's something that I want to tell people, like especially collectors, because I do a lot of collecting as well. That's one of the things that I look for in other artists, um, that I'm potentially collecting for like super long term because artists that are doing it, first of all, to create their own world, it means they're never gonna really stop because they're always gonna find something new to do. And just like Boy with No Legs has stated, yeah, the mediums might change, but think about the body of work that's being created throughout the years, right? And when our time comes to an end, like, what are we truly leaving behind? It's just an immense, crazy amount of body of work that other generations can now experience and learn from. So that's why I like doing these spaces as well, like, recording and everything because they're archives. Think about where Boy with No Legs is going to be 5, 10 years from now and pulling back to this archive of like how he was feeling when he had just launched Toonies like 1 month ago, right? And getting into that mindset and be like, damn, okay, that was his perspective then. Like, that's pretty wild. But yeah, before I get into the rant, bro, so let's talk about some of your most favorite mediums because I do see here like you're pretty known for doing your clay figures, so maybe take us through that story, right? How did that start and when did you really start to like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna put some more time into this.
Yeah, I think kind of the like messing around with more of the clay medium was a couple different things that kind of came together at the right point. Um, in general, it's kind of related back to like wanting to just experiment with different things that I'm interested in. So, seeing like that style of artwork, and being like, oh, this is cool. Let me just try my hand in it was partially a factor. But I think at the same time, it was like I joined Solana December of 2021, kind of like getting my feet in the door of the one of one scene. And it was me, like I had been making art for years and years, and a lot of it was mainly like more illustration based. But I was starting to put out work, and it was like trying to figure out like, okay, I need to. This is my first time actually in a position where I'm like more able to sell my artwork, so I have to be more like smart or strategic about it. And a big thing with that is like defining kind of your brand as an artist. And in my opinion, I think having that brand is very much like, is your art instantly recognizable as like yours? So you could even be like, oh, like Vincent Van Gogh. It's like dude has very he has a brand because of like the recognizability of like his painting technique. Um, and I think that goes with like most kind of artists. Like nowadays, if you're wanting to have like more of that, um, I guess success or like the ability to like scale your stuff up or out to a larger like audience, I think it's smart to develop some sort of brand around like your style or your vision or something in that realm. And it doesn't have to be like you only work in one medium, but at that time it was like, okay, what's a medium that I haven't seen yet on Solana that could be smart to like tap into as the first, and something that's very like unique. And you scroll through your timeline, you see it, you're like, oh, immediately I know that's No Legs, or I've seen this work or whatever. So that was partially a factor. So like around I think February of 2022, I started, or I guess earlier in that year. Yeah. So like the very beginning of 2022, I made like my very first claymation style piece, which is kind of wild. Of like, I had never really worked with clay prior, aside from like like actual clay that you like fire in a kiln in art classes in high school. Um, so it was like experimenting with that, but being very strategic about making it into more of like smaller collection sizes that are more thematic and rolling it out on a consistent schedule. So it was like thinking or being in the space for a couple months and paying attention to everything at that point in time, and then being like, okay, how can I use what I'm gathering and mix it with something that I'm able to create? And yeah, I mean, that's kind of rambly, but
No,
I think
no,
that
I totally get it, man.
that was
And I
kind of
would
like
jump in and just
the
kind of like,
start of that medium.
yeah, and I would jump in and like add on to that and ask like, how did that feel, yo, when you were like, okay, I'm about to do these plays, and you're mid process doing the first couple of characters, right? How did that feel in that process? Like thinking like, damn, I'm about to drop this, bro. And this is made out of clay. Like, I wonder what people are gonna think. You know, did you even have that thought? So the reason I asked it, I feel like, is because there's a lot of people out there that may want to try something or have an idea, but they're so like conscious about like other people and what they're gonna think. Are they gonna like it? When in
Yeah.
reality they should drop it because they want to drop it, want to do it, you know? So how did you feel in that moment? You're like, damn, I'm actually making these claymations. Like, dude, this is kind of wild. Like, I wonder if it's gonna hit or not.
Yeah, I think it was much more like it was me trying to be smart about like how can I get more traction with my work, and it was like that was definitely a factor, but at the same time it was more so just wanting to like experiment with something new. So like a medium I had never worked with before, it was like wanting to create something in that realm and kind of see where it goes, and if it fell through or it didn't if I didn't enjoy making it first and foremost, I would have pivoted into something else, but it just kind of aligned. And it was a lot less of thinking of like super far down the line at that time. It was more of just like let me experiment with something different or new for myself. And kind of as it was starting to roll out, it just kind of consistently got traction. Which like at that point in time was not it's not something I was like thinking about at all or really able to fathom. But it was just I think having consistent output with stuff and being smart about kind of that brand as an artist or that style, and um, like building my connections and my network, and um, becoming parts of
Yeah,
different
I mean,
communities and
it's like you
whatnot.
said,
Like
you
yeah,
got to be strategic about it, you know.
definitely,
Um, so I think that was definitely smart, and you gotta have confidence to be able to do something like this too, because it's like you said, you never know what's gonna happen. But in the end, you're like, okay, I want to experiment. I want people to, once they look at it, kind of instantly realize this is a no legs piece, and I think you did that well. It obviously shows. So I know you said you started Web3 December of 2021,
yeah, correct,
right? Yeah. So from that to now, man, I know Web 3 years is like 2, 3 years put into one. So Um, how has that journey been on you personally? Like, not the business side of things, not like the success, but you as a person, how has that changed you from the very first moment that you entered up until now? Like, have you seen any changes within yourself?
definitely. So like when I first joined the space, it was like I was still in college. I think it was my senior year. Um, and it was like my trajectory, my like what I was envisioning for my trajectory post graduation was very different than kind of what it became. But I think I was in a very um, like luck, like ideal lucky type of spot, or timing worked out. But then it was also like I put in so much work behind the scenes with everything, that it kind of was able to come together. But like being able to transition like out of college into working as like a artist full time was very surreal. It's something that I'm like grateful for every day, but like continuing to want to like scale up and expand like my brand further, or be able to do more things just as a creative and work with different people, or collaborate with like different projects or bigger companies and whatnot. I think I'm a very ambitious person, but at the same time, it's like a lot of the things that I've kind of set my mind to, I've been able to like do. But at the same time, like Web3 is incredibly draining. It's kind of like you're on everything like 24/7.
Nothing stops,
Yeah,
bro.
so that
Nothing
that
stops.
aspect of stuff, it's like more recently I've been definitely finding more balance with my personal life, and making sure that it's two sides of things and it's not just no legs or toonies 24/7. It's like my own life is also a priority. I go outside now, that's
100%.
important. But for a while it was definitely like just putting in tons of work to try and get myself to a spot where I could be able to have that like stable like kind of flow of income where I could do this full time while also having that like enjoyment and creative freedom and be able to do things that are fulfilling to me and not just kind of turn into like a cog in this machine as opposed to a cog in some other type of machine that I was set up for post grad, if that makes sense. But yeah, so like I don't know. In general, I think I'm in a super grateful position, and especially now that it's like I'm kind of on more of that side of okay, Web3 is a lot. It's very draining. Um, Having to make some of those like adjustments in my own personal life to be able to have more of that balance while still being able to have like consistent output and like success with everything.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think every creative out there, um, true goal overall is to kind of have like this creative freedom, as you stated, um, but in a place where you're being funded, you're being paid to be this person, right? And to create freely, because I've seen it happen way too many times where yeah, something might hit, right? A certain idea or a certain piece or whatever might hit, and they tend to get too lost in that side of that world. They're like, yeah, I need to produce more of that same thing, right? That same energy to keep going. And when in reality, it's like, I mean, you can create other stuff too, man. Like, it's just a matter of how well positioned you are to be able to have that freedom. Um, so yeah, man. I like same boat here. I had to fight and fight to do everything that I could to make sure that my life was structured in a way that yes, I'm working all the fucking time, but at the end of the day, it's on my own account, right? And I'm creating and building things that I want to create into this world. So for those listening in, like if you want to try to do something like this, you gotta understand that it's part of your life forever, right? If you're creating and you're creating in the sense that you want to make it a business, you want people to invest in you and kind of be part of the journey. It's an infinite build, dude. It's like it's never gonna stop. Yes, your personality might change over time. Your process, maybe what you're putting out into the world might change, but overall, but in a sense, like that's what you're here to do. Like that's what you kind of signed up for. So for you, I know exactly how you're feeling, man. Like you're in this place where you're trying to find balance, and that's really hard because you have nothing to really reference it from, like base it on. You're kind of just figuring it out as you go. And with managing teams, right, you have your own project, bro. You're a one-on-one artist, and you have your own personal life. Like 24 hours just isn't enough. So I guess my next question would be, how did you adjust, and did you kind of like have a set plan before you went into, let's say, the next phase of your life, which is becoming this co-founder of Toonies, right? You're already a one-on-one artist. Now you're about to make this big launch. You've been building Toonies. Did you structure something out for yourself? Like, okay, I think my life's gonna be this way, and like, were you preparing for it, or were you kind of just like, go in the moment, figuring it out?
Yeah, I think it was a lot more in the moment, to be honest. I mean, it was like I initially had the idea for Toonies like early fall or so last year. Maybe summer, I don't know. Like sometime last year, I had the idea, and it was kind of being like, oh, I this to me was like an epiphany of this is just a really cool idea of taking characters from my world and having the ability to collect them in either the physical world or the digital world, and then working with one of my close friends IRL, Time Thief, who like has that experience with 3D art and figure production and all of that. So at the time it was just like, oh, this is a great idea, let's get to work. And then it was like, I mean, everything, it was like we did it, you know, like we're still doing it, but it became like a lot of work. Which I guess wasn't, it was like expected, but not to the degree that it became, I guess. Like especially like the week of launch. Dude, I don't think I slept at all. I don't even know how I got through it, but like stuff like that, I'm like looking back on, I'm like, okay, yeah, now I've learned from that, like, okay, bring on more people, which we're like in the process of now. But doing like be I guess, yeah, like having more of that balance, or knowing kind of like boundaries with stuff, or knowing that you need to like eat food during the day. It's all a learning
Nah, bro,
process, you
that
know.
that really is a thing though, man. That like for real, that is really a fucking thing in this space, man. It like Web3 pushes you to a whole another
Yeah.
place personally, right? Because you get to learn, yo, how much can I actually handle, right? Like the amount of stress, the decision making, the making sure everything is going the way you want it to, and then you have all these other outside variables that you have no control over, and you're just like, dude, okay, well, what I do right now, what I do for the next 2 hours. Oh shit, I gotta eat. Like, oh damn, I forgot. I haven't drank water today. Like, that really is a thing, man. It's just
Yeah,
insane.
it's definitely like like in the moment, I think it's, you don't like realize it as much, but then you like talk to people that work like normal jobs or whatever, and they're like, yo, like you need to eat food, bro.
That's my life, dog. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, in the,
And in your mind, you're like, bro, life isn't like this. Isn't everybody
yeah,
living this
which
way?
is, it's also at the same time, it's like, I think it's cool when you're able to like push yourself to like those types of limits, to be like, okay, I know that this is possible for me to like kind of kill myself in the moment in order to get to this outcome, or enable to, in order to do whatever it is I want to do. Like it's good to test yourself with that and push yourself in order to like have that success or achieve what you want to achieve. But I feel like you also need to have like limits at points, and be able to like not hit that like burnout spot or go super overboard. Which like I definitely think there was some times where it was close to that, if I'm being fully transparent. But you know, it's like finding healthy habits, or different things that can be like beneficial to allow you to like kind of ease up, or be like reflect at the end of the day, like journal or go to therapy at the same time. It's like that stuff's very important, and I think a lot of people definitely overlook it, that are like in Web3 every single day.
No, definitely, I couldn't agree more. And that's why, like, even as something as simple as a daily reminder, right? Like, so for ODK, we have this thing called the Power Up, right? Where I post, a statement, a reminder, kind of like feeding the mind, right? And it doesn't matter if you're just waking up, but that can really set the tone for your day. Or if you're going to sleep, and that's like the last thought on your mind that you read, like it can really put you in a different place. And that's what like that's something that people don't really realize, that yeah, it might not seem like much, but bro, like just having that message hits your phone, and you're reading it, right? Like, let me read the latest one actually, so you can get an idea. I think it's super important. All right, so this is like the most recent one. You can't make up for lost time. You can only do better in the future. Something simple as that, bro. Simple reminder, but it can really, like I said, set your tone, maybe change your perspective in that moment, right? I think it's super important. And for us as builders, artists, to kind of leave these tools and these experiences in a way for other people to realize, like, okay, well, maybe it doesn't need to be that way. I can do it like this and save a little bit of time and energy. Maybe I structure stuff out and have a team before I get into like that next phase or something, right? Because I think that's super important in this space, to have a full team, running operations, coming up with ideas, making sure that you're good, right? Like, I have my team, bro, that's checks up on me and stuff. It's a beautiful thing to have, you know, in this space when you're really setting yourself up to, like, you're putting yourself out there. You bring your ideas to fruition, and you're doing it in a sense for everybody else out here to enjoy. you know, with Toonies, it's really sick project. You guys combine, like you said, 3D figures. You're actually doing it with a friend. I was in another space not that long ago, and I think you were talking about you and Time Thief were talking about like how you guys met. You guys have known each other for quite some time, right? And he was actually not in the space, but you were telling him like, bro, like you need to be in here, right? And I think he came a little bit later. So how has that been like, bro, to kind of have this IRL friend that you got into Web3, right? Got him into your world, and now you guys are working on this project here. You guys launched it, sold out. How has that affected your guys' relationship?
Yeah, I mean, so like when I was first onboarded in end of 2021, it was from another one of our, like, it's kind of, we have like this friend group that we all met in college. Yeah, like Time Thief and I met, we just lived in the same dorm building. So it wasn't art related. But then myself and one of our other friends, who's a one artist in the space, Scrog, um, him and I met through kind of like some art related stuff. And it was just a train of like Scrog onboarded me and then I onboarded Time Thief. And it was nice because it was like we were all kind of new to the space. So being able to navigate it with people that you already knew was very beneficial, and being able to kind of like help each other out with steps along the way or critique artwork and talk about whatever, I think has been great. um, and then I'd say for getting to work with Time Thief, it's, I think that's like the way that stuff kind of connected there was really ideal, because it's like that's someone that I'm already close with. So if there's ever times where we're like working on stuff and there's like we have different opinions on stuff, we can be open about it, and it's not like gonna like tarnish anything. It's like we already have known each other, we've been through a lot of shit together, so being able to have open conversations about stuff, or openly critique, or um, talk about stuff further. And then even having like Scrog that also like knows kind of the inner workings of the project, and going to him for advice as well, or talking to different advisors for stuff as well, I think has been a big help. And but yeah, I mean, in general, it's like I'm also, if I ever go hang out with them, it's pretty much only talking about toonies, which is like, it's kind of, at times it's like I just want to talk about like football.
Like, bro, I just want to kick it. You
Yeah.
know, let's get away from that for a little.
So it's like, I mean, that to some degree, it's like there needs to be a little more balance there or whatever. But I think that's realistically what happens if there's people that you like, just like start a business with. It's like, even if you talked about a bunch of other stuff prior, you were just friends prior. I mean, even when I like onboarded him onto Solana, all of our conversations were just about NFTs or like art we were making, which is cool. Like that's fine. But it's like naturally that will shift when it's like you're both working on some sort of thing together. It just, that kind of becomes the only thing that you ever talk about forever.
That's the reason I asked, man, because I can imagine, you know, kind of having that partnership with somebody, and you guys launched a project, and now you're kind of, you know, you guys need each other, you know, to some degree. So, you know, from coming from friends to partners into the craziest space out there in the world, I can only imagine what that does to your relation. That's why I asked, like, yo, how's everything?
Yeah,
But
no, something that's kind of,
that's good, man.
something tied to that that's kind of wild is like I talk to this dude every day for like so many hours of the day just working on stuff. And like I didn't know that he was like, he got into like a grad school. I'm like, dude, I talk to you
Oh,
every
shit.
day, and I find out through like your girlfriend or something, and I'm like, dude, like what? So stuff like that, it's like the conversations are pretty much only ever related to like work stuff. um but like I'm also like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like expect.
It's like it sounds like you guys no longer have that, you know, government name type of
Yeah.
friendship. You guys are just no legs and time to each other the whole time.
Facts. But it was also weird because like in the like beginning of when we were first starting out on Solana, it was like we had to like train ourselves to call each other no legs and time thief, so that if we were ever in spaces, I wasn't calling him by his government. but now it's like we're just talking to each other in person like that, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, that is funny, dude. So let's get into Toonies a bit. You guys really brought something special to the space, and I see you guys have like an up and coming burn. Um, but besides that, the vinyls, man. Like, I'm not too familiar with Time Thieves, the story. But the vinyls look crazy, like the toys, the figurines. How long has he been doing that?
Yeah, I think maybe like 4 years or so, 3 or 4 years. He's been kind of working in like that art toy, designer toy realm. He has like a Web 2 project that he like had already launched, and he's done a lot of different like custom pieces and has a ton of connections in that realm, has worked with different factories for different types of products and whatnot. Um, and I like I always kind of had that in the back of my mind, if like, hey, if I ever want to make some figures or whatever, or make something that has to be like manufactured through a factory for like a vinyl figure or resin figure or whatever, it's like I got a connection. And then he kind of has a bunch of connections beyond that, which is cool. But yeah, he's been doing that for a couple of years. Um, and then on top of that, like has done all of like the 3D modeling stuff for a couple of years because it's been tied to that. I think prior to doing like art figures, he was very involved with like battle bots or like robotics stuff. So I think that's where he first started learning kind of like that 3D designer side of stuff with like CAD, um, like making parts and whatnot. And then I think it was kind of a similar thing of like him and his brother had that interest in figures or kind of like collectibles, and then they just were like, okay, let's try our hand in that. So they did their own thing there, and then over time, kind of continue to do that while also doing stuff in the Web3 space with his own collections. Um, and then, yeah, I mean, Toonies came along and it was like wanting to take some of my creative ideas and mix it with his um, like experience on that front. So it worked out well.
And uh, right now, where would you say like Toonies is currently at, and where is it headed in your mind, right? Like, 'cause I know you probably have a sense of direction, where you want to lead that ship.
Yep.
So, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Definitely. There's like him and I are just constantly sending like paragraphs and paragraphs of like our vision with stuff or future like plans with everything. I think Toonies is like the as is a brand as a whole. It's not just like we launched this one NFT project and that's what everything revolves around. It's like that's kind of like the first phase of everything that we're doing. Um, so like the first phase is like the figure back mystery pack where it's a 3,000 piece collection that's more edition based and then has the ability to have the NFTs burned and redeemed for matching physical figures and merchandise packs tied to that. So that's kind of the introduction to the core cast of characters. But even kind of going beyond that, we're already working on a lot of different things that are um, like other collaborations with projects or other artists and whatnot. Having upcoming airdrops for holders that have different kind of utility tied to stuff that we haven't talked about much yet. But we have the burn next week, so that's a big kind of first step with the first phase of everything. But just as a whole, I mean, like we're very much oriented in like future stuff or like wanting to have more collaborations or scale everything out larger. And in my eyes, it's like the people that are invested in the project now. It's like a very like long term type of thing. I don't think the project is built around like or built in the same way of a lot of projects that come out now where it's like immediate hype and then it just kind of dies or like does whatever. Because there's a lot of differences with our project in general, but I think a big thing is also wanting to have a lot more longevity and continue to scale the brand out. And I think if you look at the face of it, it is very scalable. It's like family friendly. It has these core characters that all have their own emotions that people can identify with and whatnot. It's able to have stuff like cartoons or other physical merchandise or things in that realm. And it's like that's all stuff that we're like working on behind the scenes day to day. So yeah, there's a lot a lot on the way. And in general, I think that's just how my mind works of wanting to continue to like build stuff out further and being very ambitious with kind of the ideas. And as long as all the correct steps are taken, it's like that stuff becomes reality. Like even Toonies successfully releasing and selling out, it was like that started out as just an idea that I had one day and sent some sketches and ideas over to Time Thief, and then it's like we just put in a ton of work over the span of like 7 to 8 months, and it successfully launched. So now it's just continuing to scale it out and do more with the project, the brand, and kind of our creations in general.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a strong IP. And I think just like you said, it can expand into to many different art forms, right? Different mediums. Um, that's really cool to see to, the super early stages of Toonies because it sounds to me like you just like me. You're gonna be creating into you can't, right? So and you're young. You sound pretty young, man. So it sounds to me like that's gonna be a long and eventful ride, for whoever wants to be part of it. Um, so how has that affected you though, personally as an artist? Because you did your thing in the one-on-one art space. You have a plethora of art, but there's so much art. How has that affected your own personal creations as a one-on-one artist?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it has like slowed down for like needing to prioritize like Toonie stuff, but it's like I'm not just fully like exiting the one of one side of stuff. I'm very much still one on one artist and wanting to continue to have output on that side. And it's like work while working on Toonies and having that as the forefront more recently. It's like I've just collected so many ideas of like different collections or different types of drops or like my sketchbook is very full of stuff. So there's a bunch of stuff that I'm working on that front too. But it's had to like slow down in the past couple months in order to like prioritize like Toonies. So
No, I mean, I think it's important to continuously keep creating, even if it's just for yourself. And I was actually just talking with a buddy of mine, and he had asked me like, "Yo, like you do this, you do that, like how's it, how does that even work?" Man, like, well, to be honest, I try and focus on what is super important now, right? With having a project, making sure that things are in good standing, but overall, ironically, it's kind of helped out my other markets because now since I'm so busy running this and doing this, I'm not dropping as much stuff, right? I'm not painting as many paintings. So when I do paint something or when I do drop something, it's like has a whole nother flavor of being special because now it's like hard to acquire even. Um, but yeah, man, it's kind of cool to have that same relateness with somebody that closely because you are in the one-on-one space and you have your project, right? You have your personal life, and in a lot of ways, that can definitely relate to your life. I've always we obviously lived separately, but a lot of the stuff that you're saying, I can contextualize and like I'm like, yeah, I went through that, I went through that, currently going through that. Yep, so it's nice to have that, friendship and know that somebody out there is kind of living that same life, man. But yeah, it's exciting, dude. I've been, a fan for quite some time. When I first entered the space and I saw your clay figures, like, dude, this is sick. Like, automatically, I got it, and I was like, okay, this guy's dope. And then I saw that you did actual illustrations, like some of your pieces, you actually do digital on top of the photo, right? So you do the claymation pieces, and then afterwards you add more stuff to it, correct?
yeah, I think all of the clay pieces have that like mixed media side of it. So it's like the clay is all physically sculpted, and then I'll photograph it, Photoshop it, kind of clean it up. And then I'll add digital illustrations on top of it in Procreate because I always like that it has like something more like niche or specific that's harder to replicate because like anyone could kind of sculpt it, but then it's also taking like my previous style that I worked a lot in of that like more rugged illustrated type of style and adding that on top of the clay pieces. And then also since a lot of it's more like digital with it being NFTs, having it where it has that digital edge of digital illustration is and it's not just kind of like taking a photo of a physical object and then minting it. It's like the final artwork isn't finished until it has that digital component to it in my eyes.
Yeah, I think it's super unique. It does have that, aesthetic, and it makes it that much more niche, like you said. We are coming up at 15 minutes currently, so if there's anybody in the crowd that wants to hop on and ask a question or say a statement or just kick it, this is the time right now to request. If not, I'll just keep it rolling and dive into the next question. But yeah, what was I gonna ask, man? Yeah, I completely lost my train of thought, dude. And that happens because I'm seeing all your artwork right now on the desktop. I'm like scanning it, right, going through it, and I see you actually have some animation as well. It's interesting how you mix a lot of different things to storytell in your way. I think one of my favorite pieces is actually, um, what's it titled? It's like the guy in the living room. There's like fire everywhere.
Oh yeah.
I think those are really sick, man. We made the
Yeah.
rooms. Bro, those
I
are
gotta
vibe. Like, can you imagine having those scale to size in real life?
that'd be fire.
That'd be insane.
I definitely, I mean, in down the line, I'd love to do more gallery shows. And there's some artists that I'm inspired by that they'll take some of their like um, sculpture work, or even like with the toonies, like stuff that Cause will do, where he'll have those figures and then it's just like scaling them up to be like these massive statues. Stuff like that, I think would be cool to have like with gallery shows or more IRL events and whatnot, whether it be with toonies or more no leg stuff with the clay. But yeah, I mean that room series has been one that I've been working on for I think since September of last year or so. So it's one that those pieces take a lot more time, but I think those are some of my favorites. And I think there's like three more pieces in that collection that still have yet to come out, but those are just kind of dropped from time to time when they're made and not kind of like rushed or anything because they take a lot more time to kind of create and put out.
Yeah, man. I'm saying right now, I've been part of that world for the past 3 years now, and I think your art, what you make, is very strong, and I think you should definitely put it on the list in the future to do some shows because I think that would be a very unique experience. We're actually, polishing relationships to be able to have shows in the future as well, right? It's really something that I want to have more foot in the door, right? When it comes to stuff like this, to really curate shows and really bring an energy and experience into public because I think it's super important. Like you don't know how much this is gonna touch the next artist, right? Like the next kid looking at your play stuff, like, dude, this is insane, right? And they take that idea, run with whatever inputs that they put, and come up with something crazy and new. But yeah, I think definitely, bro, consider it because I would definitely go. I'd promote the shit out of that, bro. This
Yeah.
is insane.
There's, I mean, a couple of things related to what you just said, but I think in general, one of the main like thoughts with all of my artwork is wanting to like inspire other people to create stuff. So it's like I find a lot of fulfillment in creating art or design stuff or whatever and wanting other people to see that, enjoy that, and be like, oh, I want to try something like this too, or I'm inspired by this aspect of this work or whatever. Um, and I think having like IRL shows or whatever, or being in galleries is definitely a big like thing that can help that, like get into new eyes or people are able to connect with the work deeper. But even like I got sent a video from my sister like last week, who's like a fourth grade teacher, I think, fourth or third something. And it was like all of her students, she was showing my like exchange art page, and it was like all of the clay sonas and the rooms and clayscapes and everything. And they were like freaking out. They're like, "Oh, this is sick," and I'm like, "That's so cool to see." Like people that like they probably don't give a shit about NFTs, but they're just connecting with the art and like being like, "Oh, this is really awesome!" Like seeing this artwork like that. So I definitely think having ways to, and then with that too, it's like you can have the like gallery shows and whatnot, and that's a big thing that we have planned for Toonies is having what's it called? Like going to different conventions or having IRL showings and whatnot. So like conventions like Designer Con or Complex Con will have booths at, and that's a way where people are able to see the artwork and connect with the artwork, but then also be like, oh, what is this? Let me learn more about these characters or this brand, and then it's kind of onboarding people in that way, from seeing the art in a way that's familiar to them with like that physical side of stuff and figures and this clearly branded like cast of characters, and then being able to bring them on to like Solana through that. And then also like later this year, I think I have a gallery show that I was able to get into, to have some of my clay work on display. So it'll be cool to have like the physical clay in person and then also have like either prints or digital screens that show like the final version of that artwork. But yeah, that's still a couple months down the line until that is like on display, but definitely want to do more stuff in that realm to try and tap into more of that audience. And then I just think it's cool to have shows that are like more themed in that way.
100%. I think you're doing it right, man. It sounds to me that you're pretty structured. You know, you're very much inspired. You create because you want to create, and you're not scared to put your stuff out there, which is a big factor. Um, but yeah, super excited, man. Super bullish on you, everything that you have going on. Inspired, motivated, and I think just stay healthy, bro. Take care of yourself. Make sure that your needs are being met. That way, you're able to continue creating for the world. Um, that being said, I'll end it in this last question before we close it out. And it is if you can go back in time and talk to young No Legs, what is the thing that you would tell him?
Um, that's a good question. I think I would say to um like don't give a shit about other people's opinions. Just do what it is that you love to do or that you're most inspired to do, or just like your interests. Like, be proud of your interests, be open with your creativity. Don't let people affect you if they say negative stuff or if they're like, oh, that's not gonna pan out or whatever. It's like, it's like a dick. No, I'm just kidding. But like, yeah, I would just be like, believe in yourself, man.
No, but like really though.
Yeah, but I think
Really
the
though.
younger me was very self-conscious and didn't have a lot of that confidence in anything that I was doing in general, but anything that I was interested in or my creative stuff, there was a lot less confidence there, and having a lot more of that now, I think I'd go back and be like, "Hey, just keep doing it, man." And I hope others that are
Yeah,
creative and may feel that way are able to kind of just continue to push through that, and because I think any sort of creative output is good and the world needs more of it, so keep doing it even if people shit on it or if you shit on it or whatever, just keep going through it.
it's that authentic authentic creative expression. And when you're able to do that to the fullest, bro, so fucking powerful. But you guys heard it here. No Legs, bro. It's been a pleasure. Again, thank you for your time. Thank you for opening up and having this conversation, going deeper into you as a person, right? And overall, everything that you're doing. Much love to you, bro. And again, thank you for taking the time and kicking it with us here at ODK. Much love to everybody listening in. And yeah, we'll catch you next week on the next Creative Mind, man.